So, a lot of us today are talking about artificial intelligence in the context of cybersecurity and scanning and infrastructure protection and so on. I have an expert here today, one of my friends, Albert Heinle. He's built a company called CoGuard that does infrastructure scanning. I'm going to ask him a little bit about how AI might help or change or maybe even disrupt some of the work we do in there. So, I hope you'll stick around. Hi, this is Ed Amoroso. Welcome to our discussion. This is a third in a series of my technical discussions with Albert Heinle. He's one of the world's leading experts in infrastructure scanning and a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So, Albert, thanks for making time today. I appreciate making a few minutes.
Anytime. Happy to talk about AI and infrastructure. My two
Oh,
favorite.
let's just start with the big question. What do you think of AI? Like I don't like the options here. I hate it. I love it. Something in the middle. What's sort of your visceral reaction to advances in artificial intelligence, say in the context of cyber and software and so on? What do you think?
Well, on one hand, it's obviously very, very exciting, right? I mean, you have now capabilities on your hand that you could only dream of a couple of years ago in terms of automation, in terms of ways how people can get things quicker done, find remediations and items like this. So, and from a defender level, I mean, you are able to scale and become the 10x dev, even if you're 1x dev, right? So you are able to find answers quickly, get yeah, get started quickly, even with newer progresses or initiatives. But on the other hand, the problem with cyber is you're not the only one with access to those tools, right? The attacker has it as well. So you're basically looking now at a playing field where both sides have an accelerated access to resources. Basically, that's how I view it.
You think there's a little bit of a bubble right now where some people have a an inflated sense of what AI can do, or maybe we're underestimating what AI can do. Where do you sort of stand on that?
Well, like with every technological revolution, you will have the moment where people are thinking they can, do everything with it. And in the end, it turns out, you can do a lot with it. I mean, so similar like the internet in the early days, if you remember, right? People were not really grasping what are the implications, what can we actually do with it, right? And I think with AI, yes, I mean, there is some bubbly activity going on there as well. But I think in the long run, this is something that is here to stay and to solve a lot of problems that we are currently facing that we can just do better in the future to enable a better even work-life balance for a lot of CISOs. I am very convinced that this will be the case at some point.
You know, you work in the area of scanning. You're one of the best at this. And viewed at maybe the 50,000-foot level, scanning can be thought of as ingesting data,
Mhm.
making sense of it, and then producing some sort of recommendation. I mean, that's sort of what AI does. You go up a high enough level, everything's the same. But I mean, if you think of it that way, I guess a question I would ask would be, is it possible that at some point scanners are agents, where there's this piece of AI that is going in and doing the collection and making determinations using data and learning and training and supervision, whatever it's using, to get the right answer and then provide back insight. Do you think we'll reach that point where we really just mechanize this? Or do you always think it'll maybe be this hybrid thing with humans and tools? Where do you come out on this? You're one of the experts.
Well, I personally do think it will be a hybrid thing, but not just between humans and tools, but between tools and tools. So you will
Oh,
have
I
way of
don't.
determinism that you still are required to have. And when it comes to scanning, one of the major pain points that everybody hates about scanners, and we all know what they do, is false positives, right? That is like one of those things. And for example, we at CoGuard, we have a very deterministic engine that tries to avoid those false positives at all costs. What we are using, for example, AI for is to ensure that our rule set is not stale, that we can expand with more software that we can support over time and ensure that those policies make those in. But in the end, the scanning engine remains this deterministic piece, powered and expanded and heavily reliant on the AI to feed it the latest and greatest information. Because also stale rules have been a problem in the industry as well for a long time. And this is like where we also came in and where we had a grant by OpenAI to do some research in the area how we can expand our tool in order to yeah, support as many software pieces as possible and stay on top of any updates and potential misconfigurations that can come up as we go. So to answer your question shortly, yes, hybrid, but also, multiple layers to this hybridness.
Scanning has this sort of reactive quality to it, meaning if you and I are scanning, that means somebody did something, somebody set a thing up, and then we come in and look after the fact at this thing they did, and
Mhm.
then recommend changes. Very well worn practice, been doing for years. Question, like with AI, could we get to the point where the scanning is more predictive? You know what I mean? Like instead of me looking at infrastructure misconfigurations, I look at infrastructure decisions and then suggest, based on what I'm looking at, here's what might happen. Like I'm just wondering if can scanning shift left a little bit more and be more predictive. Does that make any sense? I'm wondering if that sort of thing is possible. Maybe
That
do that already. I don't know.
You know what? That makes actually perfect sense. And I do think in order for this to happen, we need a lot more training data, right? Because I mean, similar like software,
More experience doing that. Yeah.
and similar like software infrastructure is also being developed actively in every organization, right? And if you look at open source projects, it starts with a certain code base, and then the code base evolves over time, and some of the items are based on issues that were found, right? So if you could predict in advance, oh, wait a minute, because if you go this route in a different software project, they have tried it and at some point also needed to add this control. So they could probably predict you to tell yeah to tell you what you need to do there in order to prevent future issues with your current setup. And I'm very sure for infrastructure we will be able to observe a similar thing, but for that we would need a lot more repositories out there that the AI could train on, because usually when it comes to infra, people are a little bit more closed up, and there's not much public information about that out there.
It's sort of like the convergence of posture analysis, like these SPMs, the security posture management tools that give you visibility. They'll do stuff like you've seen, like these risk scores that you get. So it would be like the convergence of that with the type of scanning you and I would be familiar with, where I'm pointing at something and looking for things to fix. Like instead of looking for things to fix, I'm looking for just data, and then I make decisions. Some I fix, some it's almost like this. Do you see that? It seems like things converge. Maybe that's just the way life is. Things that are similar eventually do converge in a common approach.
Well, I do think though you're pointing out to it at a very interesting spot there, namely the scores, right? So because
Risk
people
scoring. Yeah.
in charge need to make decisions, right? They need to make sure, hey, am I doing the right thing with the right business goals, right? So which actual flags are important, and that is something that is also a huge pain point for many developers and engineering managers and their like. And I think where AI can come in is also to describe to them why this matters, why this maybe even matters in their particular use case. Because very often we get, as a company, requests from our customers asking, can you explain again why this is important? Because we think we have this fixed here, but and there's a lot of explanation that you sometimes need to do and give them some examples. Whereas I feel like those are like the types of things, if you had a knowledge base that, an AI can answer, hey, listen, this may look small, but it actually opens up this can of worms over there. And then it can, explain it to them in minute detail. And I think this is where the strength of AI when it comes to the human interface of the decision maker comes in. It gives them, it answers the questions that they have where they might have a trouble understanding the priority or the materialism of certain issues.
Is AI something you're looking at for a present or future enhancement to your own platform?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're using AI actively in order to keep being the most comprehensive tool for
That
configuration
makes
that is out
sense.
there. We're trying to add as many tools as possible anytime we see things that a customer has deployed and we are not supporting it. We are like grabbing those manuals and getting those policies into it, right? So, and this is like how we are expanding our tool greatly. And since LLMs, this process has become not manual anymore. It actually has a very high accuracy rate in detecting and extracting all the information we need so that we can generate those policies and just do a final human review for weeding out the 4%-ish of hallucinations in there. And then, yeah, then they're available in our deterministic tool. And in the end, I mean, I'm personally a believer of, separating those items too. I don't like customer data would going into any LLMs. We would never let that happen. It should only be in the development process. And that is how we're using it today.
Sounds very promising. That gives me great hope for the future. That's awesome. So I guess if people are interested in the platform, your website would be a good place for them to visit. Is that the right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Check out the blogs and there's more reading and what things can go wrong, what things can go right. Everything is there.
That's fantastic. Albert, thank you so much for spending some time. I think we'll set up some more discussions. We may add your business partner to come in and talk a little bit about some of the issues that you guys see as you're talking to customers. I've spent time with you, and I think there's quite a bit of interesting information to share. So we'll do some more chats.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Same here.
And thanks to all of you for watching.